And it's Evan here with Kevin Kieller of EnableUC in Toronto. Kevin, how are you?
I'm doing well, Evan. Thank you for
All,
asking.
all things considered.
Yeah, that's right. Staying home a lot.
So we've known each other for at least a decade, and I've know you among other things as an expert in all things unified communications. I consider you a practitioner. You're not just pontificating like a lot of analysts, but you're getting your hands dirty with real blue chip clients and deployment and strategy and design architecture. So I'm really here for my own purposes, frankly, to pick your brain about Microsoft. I consider you, among other things, sort of Mr. Microsoft Teams. And yet I'm someone who doesn't use Teams, and I really know only the 30,000 foot view of what Teams is. So let's start with the basics. Like here we're on a Zoom call. Zoom has
Right,
become ubiquitous. It's become a verb.
right.
Um, but what is Microsoft doing in this space, and what is their equivalent to what we're using now on Zoom?
Yeah, yeah. No, I was heading into this. Thank you for that kind introduction. I'm happy to be considered an expert in anything, but I think Zoom has done a great job, and it's kind of ironic we're using Zoom to talk about Teams. But the thing is I think Microsoft Teams and Microsoft overall has always been positioned very strongly in the enterprise. So I think we're seeing an explosion of Zoom for specific use cases, and I believe, and based on the kind of the data and the analytics that we work with organizations to capture, those use cases are often very social, and so Teams is providing meeting and collaboration experiences, more so in the enterprise when you're actually in maybe your 9 to 5 or whatever hours those are now that are your normal work hours. So, I think Microsoft, some organizations, have absolutely, decreed that from a security perspective. Um, and really Teams is the hub where work gets done. I think that's a Microsoft slogan or something close like that. But it Teams does provide though that capability.
So Microsoft is coming at video in the consumer space too. Haven't they recently launched an end user service or product or app designed for, me, for example, as a sole proprietor?
Yeah, they've created some new Teams licensing, and I think that they had this concept of like active speaker. So they always thought that okay, from a video perspective, seeing the person that maybe is the loudest speaker or the loudmouth in the group. I mean, that made sense. And so they are now introducing slowly like 3 by 3 kind of, so you get 9 tiles versus Zoom's, 7 by 7. Um, and as well, they've modified the licensing to be able to then, focus on what, either sole practitioners or even the really positioning Teams and adding some things to Teams to appeal to families. So they're adding some additional security and screen time monitoring and those types of things. So that's brand new. We'll see how it plays on the market.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Zoom's big appeal is the freemium model on one hand, which I think 80% of Zoom's clients really don't
Right.
pay, which is really amazing when you think about it. Does Microsoft do anything on the freemium side, or is it really an enterprise license kind of play?
No, there's certainly, like, I think, all organizations and certainly Microsoft, even before this whole pandemic, was a big supporter of, AI for the betterment of the world and this type of thing. So they certainly have freemium plans that are available. And certainly the consumer version of Skype also hasn't gone away, and it provides a bunch of capabilities in the consumer space that perhaps more directly compete with Zoom.
Yeah, that's probably a better comparison. Has Skype upped its game in terms of multi-users and tiles and that whole approach?
Truthfully, I don't use the consumer version of Skype, and since they had Skype for Business and consumer Skype, that created so much confusion that I play in kind of the enterprise space. So you can ask me about Skype for Business or Microsoft Teams, but the consumer Skype, I haven't had a consumer Skype call in, I don't
Yeah,
know,
me
maybe a
included.
year, right? Because I use Zoom.
Yeah. So what is the role of video like in the enterprise now? Is there a lot of mix and matching of services and endpoints, or does a typical Microsoft shop try to keep it pure with Teams and related technologies?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of interesting things. So, video use, I think going back 9 years, one of the first articles I wrote for No Jitter was, no, video is not the new voice. So, in the workspace, video is turned on, 1 or 2% of the time. Now, content sharing, that's big. When we're trying to get something done, we're collaborating on a PowerPoint or a Excel spreadsheet or something, that absolutely makes sense. So traditionally, video has been turned on 1 or 2% of the time. Now we're seeing much more video enabled, but I would suggest that that's not necessarily to get work done, but it's really, to check in on people, more for the social engagement. So, I would say, so first off, video inside both Skype for Business and Teams wasn't a primary kind of mode. And then in the Microsoft space, like organizations that do well with Microsoft, they've really kind of bought into that bundle proposition. So I've never been I've never been a believer, and I don't actually think that this kind of best of breed works or even exists. It exists for analysts because they're small organizations, and if they use 10 different tools, that's fine. If you have 1,000 people, 10,000 people, it doesn't make financial sense. And then, training people on 10 different tools is very, very complicated. That being said, enterprises are looking at complementing the Microsoft bundle, sometimes with Zoom, to address those other use cases as organizations, of course, want to take care of their people and provide that social kind of cultural aspect. And, right now, the 7x7 tiles with Zoom is a fantastic way to just kind of say hi to everybody. So,
Yeah, it really has become a cultural phenomenon as well,
absolutely.
from Saturday Night Live onwards. There's a lot of innovation happening in video now. It's sort of everyone's doubling down on codecs, on
Yep.
transcoding, on endpoints. Google is really upping their game as well on G Suite to compete against Microsoft. Do you notice any discernible difference between these video services? I mean, can you tell a Zoom call from a Microsoft Teams call from a call from one of any number of providers? They seem pretty equally good or bad these days.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many factors, like for you and I to talk. I mean, it's our internet provider, our, home bandwidth, our Wi-Fi, our laptops, our headsets, whatever. So I think just on the video piece, there's, relative parity, like somebody, everybody's kind of evolving on the codecs and what have you. Then, there are specific features, like certainly like Zoom right now does a better job with backgrounds. You can have like background videos. And while people dismiss that and say, well, that's kind of just frivolous, the truth of the matter is in our current situation, and when you're, serving the use case of that social connection, my being able to put up a background that represents me, it's similar to the Jiffies and all the emojis. Like, these are devices that people create camaraderie at a distance. So I would say there, Zoom is doing better. And also Zoom has some additional features that complement the video. So if you want to create breakout rooms, so now I've got 50 people and I want to basically do breakout rooms, Zoom lets you randomly assign people, and that doesn't exist in kind of the Microsoft ecosystem. Now, it seems with Microsoft, like this whole COVID-19 thing, I mean, every week they're pumping out new features. So, I think the competition is terrific. Like, so from Google and Facebook and Zoom
Sure.
and, I guess Cisco WebEx Teams as well, although you don't really hear that much about it. But, I think this one-upmanship is just great for all of us, both consumers and, kind of in the enterprise space. So I think we're seeing this rapid increase in innovation, and it's very exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's unfortunate it took this to create a renaissance in enterprise communications, but it is what it is. So, as a practitioner and architect in the enterprise, what are you seeing with your clients beyond the obvious fire drills? Like, what are they doing short term and long term to prepare themselves for this new way of working?
Yeah, no, like, so I've kind of I've created this model that kind of like react, adapt, and adopt, and so I feel that you know like people are pretty much, most organizations are through this react stage. This was a critical amount of effort just making things work. So everybody all of a sudden in an unplanned way was working from remotely. A lot of the edge infrastructure, like if organizations had things in a data center, it wasn't the servers, the stuff in the data center wasn't the bottleneck, it was the edge infrastructure. Most organizations typically said, well, most 25 to 50% of people will be remote. Well, when it became 100%, that was problematic for many organizations. The second thing is we've seen the volume of conferences go up, but more importantly, conference participants. So if I had a 10-person meeting, maybe in the past, 8 were in the same room and 2 were remote. Well, now we've got 10 people, we're all remote, and that's a different kind of load on the server. Arguably in that case, it's 5 times as much. So both volume and the modalities, everybody being remote has gone up, and that has put stress on both the cloud providers, because I think all of the cloud providers, they've done a great job, but I mean, there's been little blips that we've noticed. And certainly it was way better if you had more workloads in the cloud, because if you were an IT professional and you're trying to scale data center servers, 5 times, that is not something that you can do quickly. So, I think, good for, good on the cloud providers that have been able to provide that scalability. And then, so we've watched that with the analytics. And then the other thing that's interesting to observe is, people have opinions. So it's like, I have a Zoom call. It's a great call. I love Zoom. I have a problem like you and I had at the beginning of this call. And if that's your first Zoom call, then all of a sudden you say, well, Zoom is not reliable. And, what I'm trying to do is help these large organizations get past the opinions of, senior leadership or whatever that try something once and start capturing the analytics, because really for different organizations, Zoom might be the right choice or the right choice for specific use cases, or it might not fit, and Microsoft Teams might provide better quality and reliability. So I think that, now that we're in, the more of the adapt stage, where it's more about, okay, let's optimize experience. I think organizations are starting to look at their analytics, and if you don't have analytics, for God's sakes, start capturing them. And then you're looking at things like devices, like are the video devices, are the headsets that people found in their homes, are those certified for whatever the solution? Are there certain people in your organization that are dealing with clients that maybe it makes sense to purchase a better video camera for them, something that does auto framing and is a 4K and provides better viewing angles. So all these types of things I think we're seeing as we move into this adapt stage, because we're going to be working from home for many more months. And then eventually we'll get into the adopt stage where we look at, okay, what is the future of work? Who, we'll start asking questions like, what's the purpose of an office? Why are people going there? Do we need everybody to go there? Do we want them to go there? And I think that that's kind of the longer term. But right now, most enterprises are, in that adapt stage, having gotten over that kind of fire drill just to get things working.
Yeah, those are some great points, and it's going to be fascinating to watch the evolution. And it's really critical for companies to have trusted advisors or consultants, beyond the vendors who can advise them on these decisions. And how can folks reach you, Kevin?
Well, so you can follow me on Twitter at Kieller.
Which no one can spell, by the way. So
there you go. So
where else could they find you?
Kieller. Or EnableUC.com is a great place. We're trying to curate and share just lessons learned. I started, I think, in the intro, I'm what I call a fanalist, a fake analyst, because I actually do things. And really, I just started, writing and sharing stories because, I got tired of seeing organizations kind of run into obstacles or hit snags that really the industry knew about. So in my small way, certainly any organization that's kind of being challenged during this time, I'd be happy if go to enableuc.com. You can reach out. We've got some free meet with an expert sessions, and really, we want to help organizations be able to use this wonderful technology, both to help with business, but also to be able to keep up employee engagement and make sure that that everybody that's at risk is being taken care of as best as possible.
Well, great. Well, nice chatting as always, and good luck in helping more clients, and stay safe. We'll catch up with you on Twitter, Kevin.
Well, absolutely. Thank you very much. Stay home, wash your hands, and stay
all
safe as well.
those things. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.